what I'm trying to do when I'm looking at a property we're in the process of buying or that I might want to buy, I'm trying to learn more about the current owner, about how they operate. Then, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to translate that to numbers on a spreadsheet in the past numbers for how they've been operating. It's going to give me a better understanding for what I can expect and what I'm going to have to do with my budget versus their budget going forward or building a business plan.
Welcome into the Get Invested podcast, a podcast about all things real estate and real estate investing, brought to you by Capital Velocity Investments and a part of the Matthias Talks Investing Substack.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Get Invested podcast with your host, Jordan and Matthias, where, as always, excited to be here to talk all things investing, real estate, and real estate investing. Today's topic is going to be very much real estate investing. Today, we're going to talk about touring properties. Two different ways in which a property can be toured from, I guess you could say, a GP's perspective, Matthias. When it is one that is owned, the GP is touring a property that is part of the portfolio. Mm-hmm. And then when touring a property that they're looking to buy, or they're in the due diligence, I guess we'll say in the due diligence part looking to buy, rather than just kind of the first tour before you offer. That's a little bit more casual. And then between those two, we'll probably get into a little bit comparing what it was like looking for back 5 years ago versus what looking at a property you're about to buy, how that's shifted perhaps a little bit, how over time as an owner, what you're looking for has shifted. Obviously, where they are in the business plan is going to matter, all of those things.
Yep.
So we're going to get into that today and try to give you guys a sense of just what that process is like. It's one of those places where we talk a lot. There's a lot of this is theoretical, right? It's numbers on a spreadsheet. It's, we've got to tell a story about the property. We're telling you all these different kind of investment things where you just sit and watch numbers. But this is, you're going out there, you're literally knocking on some walls. You're kicking some mortar. You're walking around in the Mississippi heat, for instance. So yeah, let's dive in. And Matthias, you just take it away here and get us started on this.
Yeah. For context, I spent the first couple of days this week in Mississippi touring some of our existing portfolio, looking at some other stuff that we don't own. So it was just kind of top of mind, a good topic to discuss. To say, hey, what one, what was I doing when I was there, and two, what's the difference, right, between the ones we own, and we're kind of doing progress checks and just status report kind of thing, sticking my nose in there, looking around, making sure everything's the way I assume it is, and then on what the difference is when there's one that maybe is a target for acquisition. So I figured we start off talking about one we own. Went through Heritage Cove, the portfolio at Heritage Cove in Hattiesburg, and was just really, so the property, the visits aren't going to be all that different, right? Real estate guy, I'm looking at certain things every time I go to any property, whether I own it or not. It's just, that's what naturally I start looking at. But generally, I'm checking for especially if it's kind of I don't want to say unannounced visit. The team knew I was coming in town, but just as an unplanned, they're not, they didn't send a whole bunch of a crew out there to clean and shine and spick and span everything before I show up. Just kind of an unannounced, what is it? Which means I'm checking on what does the everyday property look like? You know what I mean? Like, what is the normal feel of the property?
So you're saying it's not an undercover boss situation, but I think there's some opportunity here to have a little fun and see if they recognize
put a wig
you.
in the.
Yeah, man. Show up as like, hey, I heard you guys have a leak. Just see what they figure it out.
Oh man. So I'm generally checking like. One of the big things at the apartment complex is something that if you've owned multifamily, it is trash. There's inevitably near the dumpster, there's trash. Somehow when it's either in the process of throwing it, a bag tears as you're throwing it into the dumpster if you're a tenant, or if you're the giant truck that, like picks it up, dumps the trash, stuff blows. If it's windy while you're doing this, it'll blow out. So there's always trash around the dumpster. So I'm kind of like noticing that.
Entropy and the chaos theory says it's not always going to go in, even if everybody tried.
Exactly. Yeah, people could be heroic in their efforts to get in there, and it's just things will happen.
Yeah.
So I'm checking on that because again, it's there will be some trash. It's just a thing, but like if it's ignored for a long period of time, then you start getting a mountain of
Mhm.
trash and a very noticeable eyesore kind of thing. So I'm checking to make sure that's not occurring. Similarly, not in places not near the dumpster, like you, it's inevitable. There's always, and it was near the road, so I'm sure it came out of somebody's in this world still throw trash directly out their window, whether it's a styrofoam box of shrimp tails, like in this case, which is how
Not
could it be anything else?
right.
It is Mississippi. I mean, it is the
They
Cajun
were
South.
probably
So
good shrimp. Yeah, they were probably good shrimp.
I don't doubt it. I mean, not at the time. They were pretty.
I mean, when they had them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't leave any full ones. I'll tell you that. It was all tails. So like they ate the whole thing. So things like that. I'm just looking, and I'll pick it up if I'm there. Just as I can't handle leaving stuff like that if I can pick it up if it's capable to pick it up. But so I'm looking for that, and there's always going to be some. It's unavoidable. Like we talked about. Like, even if everybody's trying and doing right, somebody can drive by and dump something out, or can blow off. You leave the carry out on the roof of your car, forget, drive off, and things happen. So trash is always one of the things. But our property managers are to a fault really good at not having at noticing it and having it cleaned up throughout the normal process of managing the property throughout the week. So it's very rare that I ever even find stuff. When I do, I'm just like, well, hey, I'll help clean it up while I'm here this time. Another thing is something. So if I'm looking for things that you wouldn't notice, that it takes time. So I see it once every couple of months, right? So I notice differences that are gradual to the person who's there every day. So things like trees and shrubs getting close to buildings, like they slowly expand and grow. And to me, it's a lot more noticeable to them, where it's like getting closer and closer every week to the roof, the overhang, or whatever. So I notice things. I try to look for things like that will stick out more to me than they would to somebody who's there all the time. So those are things I'm looking for. And then there's just generally maintenance things along those similar lines, like on the shady side of buildings in Mississippi, you're going to get like mildew over time, right? It doesn't get cooked off. It's moist, very humid in Mississippi. So things that just gradually get worse and worse, in terms of the growth or whatever of the moldy kind of, what I'm talking about, like the kind of greenish, blackish,
green moldish stuff.
Yeah, mildew is really so noticing that, because to me it sticks out a lot more than, again, if it's just slowly coming on. So a lot of that is what I'm really looking for, just as a, hey, do we need to talk about this in our next meeting? Like maybe we need to get it power washed. In the trash case, maybe we need to put another trash can on property closer to this building over here, so they don't have to walk all the way down there, because I'm noticing trash strewn between here and there. Something like along those lines we would look for, and just as a ways to help keep it in kind of the clean and real neat feeling that we want for our communities.
Yeah, that is always an interesting thing to look at. I guess a lot of people probably wouldn't, but it is in our line of work. But where are the dumpsters? How strategically placed are the dumpsters? And then of course how well they're maintained. But of course, first you can ruin any good property really fast if it's just the dumpster is a disaster.
Correct.
There's actually a big apartment complex not that far from us that is a convenient cut through for a couple of standard runs we make. It's a solid property, but there's one dumpster that's near an entrance that is always a disaster, and it doesn't take that one, just kind of ruins that entire area.
Well, that we could take a little sidebar here for dumpster placement being very strategic, because if it's easily accessible to the surrounding neighborhood, they will come dump stuff in your dumpster. They will leave couches, they will leave TV boxes, they will leave mattresses at your dumpster. They will just come. We have put at Heritage Cove, where the duplexes are, we have put we're putting a camera up because people refuse to stop dumping and it's not our tenants, it's from the surrounding. We can't put the dumpster further back into the property just from a purely space and weight bearing capacity of the concrete situation. So we have to put it towards the front. And sure enough, anybody driving by on the road before you turn into our complex and they see a dumpster, they're going to start bringing their household big items, and guess who has to pay for that whenever they do that? Because the company isn't going to just come pick up couches for free and stuff like that. So we're putting up cameras, and God bless her, Heather has no problems public shaming whatever she has to do. She, tracking down. She has all her friends in the police department. She will not hesitate to call people out for dumping when she gets the camera up and proves that they're doing it. Things like that. So putting it as far back into the property in terms of dumpster placement as possible, weighing that risk of like getting the truck all the way back in there, which could potentially tear up your concrete or your asphalt or whatever whatever the pavement's out of. But it does keep the surrounding guys from dumping onto yours, because either they don't notice the dumpster, or they feel a little bit more exposed as they drive all the way through your property to the back to start dumping stuff and unloading, potentially on camera and everything.
Yeah, and I guess the other balance there, not to go deep into the dumpster placement theory, but it needs to be located in a way in which it's not, depending on the size of the place, it's not drastically inconvenient for your actual tenants.
Yeah, because I mean, if you've got it on the very back of this property, you've got somebody standing at the very front over here, like I've seen it. A lot of most apartment complexes that are more than just a few units, somebody will put the trash bag on their car and drive over to the dumpster. Because if you rip that thing, now you're screwed. You got trash all over the place.
If it's,
and I don't blame people for that at all.
Yeah, it's wow, I'm gonna have to walk like 200 yards with this bag to throw it away. Yeah,
potentially, maybe there's grease, who knows what what's in there. Yeah. It's like, I get it.
So that is a big thing. And I mean, just this example, it's a huge complex with all these different areas and a big lake. And so they have them all over the place. And it's funny because it's really only this one that's really bad. And it's probably,
that's exactly it. It's probably because it's right towards the front and people can drive by from the main road and see it. So,
yeah. But yeah, just having stuff around like that, it doesn't matter how nice the buildings are. That's what you're going to see. So that's really huge. That's an interesting point you made, by the way, of coming to look to see things that if you're there every day, you just won't see. And it's not a knock on them. It's just because it's just a gradual thing that your memory just kind of keeps accepting as being the same.
You notice the new things. And if it's gradual, you don't notice it. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. So I would imagine most of the time that's smaller things like shrubs being too a little woolly, a little unruly, a little close to buildings.
Yeah, just getting closer to the buildings, need to be cut, trimmed back, that kind of thing.
Yeah, stuff like that, or like you said, like the creep of some power washing needs, and maybe a small crack has become a bigger crack that might need to be dealt with, things like that, and like the concrete or whatever. But I guess, has it ever been the case where you're like, I don't suppose you've ever been gone long enough for this to be the case, but you show up and you're like, this really needs a paint job. That one seems, those kind of things are, you're like, wow, I didn't realize how in the process of, especially since the places that we're buying, it's a lot of it's gradual, what we're doing, all the work we're trying to do. I just wondered if there was ever a scenario like that.
Yeah, a little bit. It's less that, it's more like I knew it will need a paint job soon. That's just, whenever I buy, this is a matter of years, right? So of ownership. Right. So it's kind of like you said, the gradual thing, but like it could get to a point where it's happened before at our local stuff here where Jen and I hadn't driven by in a while and look at the outside of the building. We're like, ugh, that is way worse than kind of we thought it was at this point. So it brings up the urgency. Like, okay, we got to go ahead and do it now. We're budgeting for it in the next 6 months or year or whatever. And so yeah, we've definitely had those where pull up and go, yeah, we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger on this, either maybe a roof replacement or painting some trim or, what have you. So even like a fence, for instance, there've been fences like, okay, that fence looks way worse than it did in my mind or the last time I was here, even though, it was deteriorating. Now it is to the point where it's becoming an eyesore, that kind of thing. So yeah. So
like,
we'll go ahead and replace that and things like that.
That fence was at an 85-degree angle, but this is looking more like a 60.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's also the coverage of this, when we bought it, the coverage of this fence was about 92%. Now we're dipping into the 70s in terms of the slats missing and the right. If it's a really old one. It's like, all right, well, you can drive a truck through that hole. So we're going to go ahead and replace the fence. That wasn't immediately urgent when we bought it, but now it was just time. We definitely had those. And that's what I'm looking for, right? And a lot of times, the managers see these things too, and they'll send me pictures of, and I'll be like, that's bad. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it, or things like that. But on visits, we've had that too.
Just last
But that-
thing on
Yeah, go
this
ahead.
from me. You said, the managers are on top of the cleanliness thing, for instance. And I come back to that one because that's just one that, I mean, anybody, we all know this struggle. I mean, it's the struggle in your own house to try to keep the mess and the dirt and the entropy at bay. Like I feel like it's constant. So that's a constant.
You don't even have the same.
I don't even
two
have
little.
kids,
Yeah, too little.
No, that's just a different
anti-clean
standard of
agents.
tidiness. At that point, you have to accept some things that I don't currently accept that I would in that scenario. But is this every week they have a time where someone comes to the clean, or is it like the manager on duty's job to go out there? And I just, how is that?
It depends on the
process?
property and the manager.
Yeah. Okay.
So, for instance, our manager for Heritage Cove lives on where the townhomes are. She lives on the property. So it's a lot easier for her to obviously, hey, I'll walk through the property and grab any trash I see laying around. She can do that any day, all day. When she goes over the duplexes, less so, but she goes over there regularly too. But it's up to them, really. It's whatever makes the most sense. And whenever the handyman's there, a lot of times if he's there to do this, that, and the other inside unit 2, 22, and 13, she'll just add it, they'll add it to the list. It's like, hey, okay, well, the dumpster is overgrown and you're in your truck. So go ahead and bring, we got to haul off whatever, or whatever the issue is. They'll just tack it on. It's just the part of the daily daily and weekly flow of operations at the property.
Right.
So it's not necessary to, I don't want to say dictate, but like to nitpick and try to get down to that, the daily details. Like that's what they're going to know the most efficient way to get that done. And I trust them to do that at a, in a timely manner.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking so much like you can pick up a box that gets blown out or whatever, stuff like that. It's more like if the dumpster itself kind of gets bad, then you don't really want, property manager have to go in there and like wade into it.
Yeah. Professional. That's why I said that if it was something like that, they would tack it on to next time the handyman comes over to do XYZ. Like, hey, there's 4 or 5 things we'll need you to do at this property, then go to the next one and do those 3 or 4 things. And they'll just tack that on the list while they're there if they notice it.
Are there some things that you know or remember kind of a shift of what you're looking for, how you approach it when you're touring from, I don't know, say you were touring Deer Run in 2019 to like now
like
you just went to Heritage Cove in 2026. I mean, they're different properties. I understand that, but I just mean as far as like how you're thinking about it, what your eyes are seeing, your lenses as it were, kind of surveying.
Yeah, I mean a little bit. I've learned a lot, right, in those time. So I know more about just the property business and what to look for in terms of like, hey man, what's going on with these septic tanks? I know what, hey, that might be backed up over there. Just broaden my horizons of things that I'll notice. Right. So a little bit of that, but in terms of like the general, like the unit style that we've gone after has not changed. That we're still going after the, the C+ to, B+ type units. So it's the same type of unit, the same type of tenant, workforce housing that we target. So not a whole lot different other than just I'm better at noticing things and thinking about certain things than I was when I first started, I guess. So kind of sharpening the pencil, but not necessarily changing an approach.
Was there anything that you missed in a property when you were touring that now is always in the back of your mind anytime you're looking at another? And now it may be a very specific instance that it's just not going to occur at a different one, but just wondering, back early. Just
probably things, for instance, with Deer Run, having our sewers that we didn't own drive, like our sewers all led to somebody else's property and a lift station on their property. Although I don't know how I would have found that out. There's no, it's not like you do a dye test, like you pour something in. I just assumed it's going to the city. If there's nothing on any of the water bills that say anything about a lift station, and there never was, then to me, I don't know why I would assume or even think to check the pipe. So, I mean, that I won't call that us missing it. It's just like I'm aware of it now when I ask those questions.
Right.
Because is this how would I have known kind of thing? It's like,
100%. Right.
So because of that, I'm also pay a lot more attention to lift stations themselves. When the property does have one, I'll go check it out, make sure I know a little bit more about what to look for there versus just ignoring it and assuming it's part of the plumbing. Like, I don't know, that's part of the plumbing system.
Right.
That kind of thing. But I don't know that we've ever missed in it because well, the good news is that it's not just us. We always have professional inspectors when we're buying a property. So they go and they know exactly what that's their job. They know what to look for and what to inspect. And so not really, we haven't really missed anything that was shocking to us. We've known about everything. There've been a bunch of things that maybe we would have done differently, but it's not that we didn't know about it. We just, we accepted it and maybe we shouldn't have, that kind of thing.
Right. Except as in like you didn't renegotiate kind of like
right. We just said, hey, this is fine. We'll still buy it, or we'll still buy as is or whatever.
Right. That's a nice kind of segue because you were saying, oh, there's things I now know to ask for, know to consider a little bit more in depth. And then of course, some things that to look for that maybe would affect either the PSA, be an amendment. And by the way, if you are unfamiliar with a purchase or seller agreement, you can go back
purchase and
2 weeks ago.
Yep.
But so let's transition, because is there anything on your list of like, I don't know, red flags or no-goes? Has there ever been something that you're like, oh, I wouldn't have bought it if I had known this? Or was it always just, we would have negotiated a different
or tried to or something?
Yeah.
So not really. It's to me, if I've targeted a property, I mean, I suppose if we ever found like a sinkhole on the property, something that was just made it completely unpredictable what's going on, I'd probably have to walk away from that. There's a property that recently somebody had sent to me recently that has water supply leaks that are between the building and the utilities. And so there's disputes over whose responsibility it is. If I had loved that property for everything else, that would be enough to turn me off, because I do not want to buy legal issues. I don't want to buy into, or suppose if in due diligence I found that there's lawsuits or something going on, I'd stay away from that. So those kind of things, like foundation cracks.
There's a huge honeybee colony in a wall.
I mean, if that was the case, we'd probably renegotiate on like, hey, like let's have that mitigated or whatever, or credit us for having that mitigated. Rarely do you find a honeybee clause in the contract. That's pretty that's pretty rare. So yeah, we would absolutely do that. But most of the, like, if it was a new building and there was some foundation issues, that would bother me. But I don't typically look at things that are younger than 15, 20 is about as young as I get. And if you're not having an initial set, like it is slow settling that's going on at that point. So you might have some, a crack here and there.
Yeah,
from settling.
Not going to be anything catastrophic because it's been too long. It would have already happened.
If it was 2 years and we're seeing some settling cracks, then I'm like, okay, that might be an issue. But again, we don't typically. That's going to be like luxury apartments, so we don't typically mess with in terms of in terms of targeting.
Let's make the transition here to what you're looking for when you're touring a property that we're looking to acquire, because clearly it's not going to be those easily mitigated change things like landscaping, trash, right? Because those things you're taking, partially the reason we're probably interested is because people aren't doing those things. So what are the more fundamental things?
A lot of those same things, because I guess the easier and the clearer you identify the problems, the easier they are to fix. And you want to walk in and fix them fast when you we talk about this a lot. You want to have a real sharp contrast between new ownership, us coming in to the tenants from a tenant perspective, new ownership between us and whatever it was before we took over. We want to have a sharp contrast. So the quicker we can change and make everything pretty, the better, really. So yeah, we are looking at that, and it's just like, hey, it's more of like, hey, this is what we'll do. Here's how we would fix this. We're building the business plan a little bit on the kind of a micro scale in terms of, hey, we want to put trash cans here and here because that'll solve all this problem, or
honestly, you'd love to see those low-hanging fruit, if you will,
absolutely.
Like problems. You're like a dumpster and someone to pick up this trash and a better landscaping, and this thing is going to look 30% better within a week.
Yeah. And so, hey, this would be a great spot for mulch. It kind of looks crappy right now. We're just going to put mulch in here. So we'll go, hey, boom, this is easy. And we start compiling those things through all the inspections and visits, and then that literally guides our capex budget and our business plan for what we're going to do initially upon taking over the property. So we're looking at that. Something I didn't mention that I would do on the ones we own is I'm going to pay attention to the tenants. I'm going to go, hey, who's around? Depending on the time of day, if it's a weekend, weeknight, weekday, during the day, whatever. Paying attention who's around, cars. There's always going to be one car that's hasn't run in quite a while, and potentially a couple of flat tires and on blocks or that kind of thing, especially on the properties we target for sure.
Yeah.
But I also want to know about them if there's one on my property, and that might be similar to, hey, it's been there a while, it hasn't moved in a while, but now that the tires are getting flat, to something the property manager might not notice if it's there all the time, kind of thing.
You kick the tire and it's like dust motes.
Exactly. There's like a colony of cats living under it, or whatever. So I'm on the new properties. I'm definitely looking at that too. I want to see what is what is the tenant base like? What are they working? Are they gone during the day? Is there a lot of people just standing around? Kind of something that would throw you off if you were potentially an incoming tenant. Like, hey, I'm a little worried about this group of dudes that's just staring at me that's just standing here staring. Like, why aren't they doing something? So I'm checking for that because I want to know, hey, what I'm doing a lot of feeling. How does this feel? How does this feel? Does it feel, yes, clean? Does it feel safe? Does it feel like a lot of these people are working? Does it feel like the tenants are generally happy? Does it feel like they're taking care of their individual little spots? Is anybody decorating their front door, their or a porch if they have one, or a deck if they have one? Like what's going on? So basically getting a feel for the pride of home. How does it? Do people making these homes, or is this just kind of a place where they run inside, lock the door, and then run back to their car whenever they got to go? That kind of thing. So looking at that, and then obviously we're looking for deferred maintenance. Hey, we're gonna have to fix those roofs. That fence needs to be replaced. That paneling is what is going on there, or what have you. Doing a lot of that too. So, which also drives kind of the CapEx budget business plan, what we got to do to make the property into something we want to own and operate.
Yeah. There's grades of that, right? Or gradients, I suppose, because there's, we need a power wash. We need to paint. Oh, these shutters look bad. Oh, there's some paneling issues. And then there's, these roofs need to be replaced. And then there's, okay, we're going to have to update the kitchens.
Sure.
It keeps going and going. And
very different. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just one thing I wanted to clarify that you kind of mentioned and then moved on from is the tenant thing. Is when you're looking to buy, you're looking kind of what you talked about, who's around, what are they doing with their spot. Maybe you talk to someone, see if they're happy, what they think about the place. But it's more just observing what's going on, who's around, etc. On the other side, if you're going to a place you own, if you got a chance, it's a little bit more politicking, right? It's a little bit more like, let me chat with the tenants, see what's up, shake some baby, kiss some hands, kind of,
Yeah, sure. We do that, but I'm also looking at that same stuff. It's like, hey, do they feel like are they proud of living here? Have they, the decorations and the things that I talk about, have they made it into their home? Because if they haven't, then that may be something we need to continue to work on and address.
Part of the bit,
it's not. We haven't achieved what our goal is yet.
Right. The business plan
we are in the process
hasn't been as effective because that is one of the things that you're making. Like you said, you're making the business plan when you turn one that we're looking to acquire based on all of these things. But on the other side, you got to make sure that they're ongoing and things are happening like you want them to, including kind of sense of place, if you will, because that too is part of the business plan. Right. It's not, I'm here as landlord and overseer to make sure everyone is doing what they should.
I rarely say, I usually, the move is I'm with management whenever I'm on the property.
Okay.
Because you never want to tell people you're the decision maker, and the managers don't do that either. They say, the owner, there's always a bad guy in the background who has the decision making capability, and you don't ever want to present to them as the decision maker, because then you have some tough conversations that aren't
right. You always
we want to. Yeah. Sorry. We want to know what they want, but I don't want to be put in a position where I'm like, listen, it's just not feasible for me to rip down this entire neighboring building and put up a playground for your child. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever, what have you, because there's no vetting the request when they find a decision maker of what they
Oh
of
yeah.
what they might ask, or they might assume or think. So I'm always with management when I'm touring a property.
Right. Yeah. You want to leave Oz his curtain and levers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the
100%.
managers are very good at that. Yeah. That's their job.
Yeah. It's just, those are such interesting conversations. I've been in many of them as honestly as a teacher and now. And I just like, I'm glad that you think I have such wherewithal and power.
Yeah.
It's slightly flattering, but I promise you I do not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm sorry. I realize that this carpet in your unit is, there's that one stain over there from when you spilled coffee on it, but I'm not going to tile your entire unit with luxury tile, because you saw another unit that looked like that or something, things like that. And it's just like, I have to make a bunch of those decisions, and I do it in an unemotional, away from the individual tenant, because I'm not, I don't want to be more sympathetic to one tenant than the other, that kind of thing. So it's safer that way.
100%, because you can find yourself saying in an instance like that where you want to just like be a human with a human, you can find yourself. Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess I have the same question, but I feel like you've probably answered it. But I was going to ask, like, what has changed and what you're looking for? Where do you feel like you've improved? But is it probably the same thing where just, I know there's more I look at, I see more, those kind of things? Or is there, maybe here's a different way to ask it. Are there things that you used to weigh in on a lot, or like want to look at and assess, that now you're just like, that's this person's job? And
there's a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of that. What I'm trying to do, and I was just thinking about this, what I'm trying to do when I'm looking at a property that we're in the process of buying, or that I might want to buy, I'm trying to learn more about the current owner, about how they operate. Because if I go and I look and everything's very clean, then because what I'm going to do is I'm going to translate that to numbers on a spreadsheet, and the numbers that they have passed me, the past numbers for how they've been operating. If I don't see anything in the painting budget, or anything in the you know what I mean? Like, because a line item in the trailing 12 that they've given me for their past year of financial performance, I'm going to go and I'm going to look at the property, and I'm going to look at what they spent. And I'm going to, in my mind, I'm going to go, man, they spent way above average for XYZ. And then I go look at XYZ, and I'm like, that looks worse than the things that I spend down the street for less than that, whatever. It allows me to put a better analysis on both their numbers and how they operate, if that makes sense. So I'm going, hey, these guys don't spend anything on landscaping, or their landscaping number is really low. And I go and it looks like it's overrun and overgrown. And I go, okay, well, obviously it's going to cost more than whatever, than they hired some hobo down the street to weed whack every month and a half, then okay, it's going to cost more. So their budget that they're passing me is not really accurate for how I would run the property, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of evaluating what I see from the condition of the property, and they painted the shutters, that they did this, that different things that I'm noticing. It tells me a lot about what I'm going to find probably on the inside too, if I haven't seen and toured every unit. I generally understand, this is how the outside looks, this is how they treated this is how they treated that. It's going to give me a better understanding for what I can expect, and what I'm going to have to do with my budget versus their budget going forward, or building the business plans.
Right. So, I mean, there's a pretty straightforward one of, it looks like dookie out here, and they're not spending any money on landscaping, power washing, those kind of things. Okay. So adjust, but it's also going to be part of the business plan. So what is the scenario? What do you do when they say they spent $25,000 on this painting, and I think this has not been painted in 10 years? I mean, do you run into the opposite of that? I mean, that's almost like, are they laundering money? Like, is this Ozark?
I've been like, who did they pay and why? A lot of times they'll do it themselves, or a lot of times kind of small time or even generational owners will hire buddies to do stuff, or they'll hire themselves. If they have a construction company, they'll hire themselves, and they'll pay whatever makes sense. And, they're allowed to do that, I suppose, depending on I don't know, the tax consequences of like writing things off, that maybe, I don't know about that, but I've seen that a lot before too. It's like, well, he has a construction company, so these renovations were $20,000 a unit, even though there could have been 8, or something like that. So
Right.
that all that skews too. So that really just helps knowing your market and what things cost. So you go, wow, that's a big number for that, or that's slightly above or slightly below or whatever. Just
Right.
generally having that understanding of your market helps you evaluate those numbers too. And then especially when you can look at the product and go, huh,
Yeah.
it just helps build a more clear picture of what has happened and what needs to happen and what it's going to cost.
Yeah. That would be for just so many different scenarios or variables, right? Everything from, you're not going to see on a trailing 12 on the properties we buy for sure, the renovation budget, but there should be some kind of turnover
Mhm.
budget, right? A flipping, like how much is it costing them to flip a unit? And then you can assess what it is that's going into that one way or the other and decide.
And then you got to look at like if you once you start looking at units, especially ones that are being turned, that'll also give you some insight too, because the more expensive the turn is, typically the longer that tenant's been in there. So if
Mhm.
you have a bunch of tenants or a
So
bunch
there's
of
like actually,
units, yeah, because it's like, okay, well
okay.
that's a good thing. That means they've
Right.
lived there for 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. You look at the
Mhm.
condition of it's like, wow, that you can tell where they had their painting on the wall because that's a different color than the stuff around it or
Right.
whatever. And painting, I don't know that many people have paintings, but picture on the walls. Maybe I should have said that. But things like that,
A,
you notice, you're like,
a
okay, well, this
print.
person, there you go. This person clearly lived here for a while, which can be an indicator that, hey, people enjoy living here and they will do it for a long time, which can be a good indicator. But it will also mean those turns. Okay, we're gonna have to complete paint, paint job and floors or whatever. So they could be more expensive, but if you only have to do them once every 5, 7 years,
Right. That's a per
that's a good
year
sign.
cost in a way, right? Because that's like
Right.
per lease.
And you can look at
Yeah.
when you go through the leases and the rent roll, you can see how long you can build, like, say, an average time span that tenants have been in when you go do your lease audit and look through all the paperwork on how long they've been in there. And if everybody's been in there on average 3 years, one, that probably tells you that the rents are really low
But
because if they haven't increased over that time,
right.
people probably would stay longer. But two, it tells you that, hey, this is not a transient area. People don't come in and move in and out of here all the time. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Because once you get to 3 years, there's so many reasons at that point to have moved, right? And,
Yeah.
got a better job, got a different job,
Got married,
got
who
married.
knows?
Yeah. Who knows? Just wanted to move to a different
Had
part. At
kids.
that point,
Yeah.
it's not, yeah, exactly. It's not people just kind of passing through. I mean, I think the stats, I don't know. I think they've gone down now. I think people are actually staying in place.
I think so
more,
too.
But
I've
think,
seen articles.
yeah, I've seen a number of new studies on that. But at some point, the national average people live in a place like more, that was like 2 years and then they move.
Yeah, which is crazy
Reason.
to me anyway. Like,
Oh, I know. I mean,
hate moving.
Rachel's family moved all the time when she was growing up because of, her dad he wasn't losing his job and having to go find another. He was building from this one to go to this one to go to that one, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So, but I don't, that's not, I had to do it for a while in grad school and I hated it. So that's not my bag either. But anyways, well, we're going to wrap it up here. It's interesting to hear you say you build the CapEx, you build the business plan based on what is there and you can confirm what is there. But the other thing is, I can now get a much better picture and understanding of all these numbers on the spreadsheet, which I know I'm biased because of my background, but just one more example of where the phrase numbers don't lie doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Numbers can lie all the time.
Yes, they very much can.
Yeah. Matthias has to go out there and touch grass and wall and and things and to determine
a few rocks. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. What those numbers are actually saying. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Matthias, you got any last thoughts?
No, it's always fun to go. I think I posted about it on LinkedIn or somewhere, but it's always fun to go see our properties and to look at new properties. I enjoy getting out of the office and getting away from those spreadsheets with the numbers. Right. It's just cool to go out and look, and it's fun to talk about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm always jealous because I'm not in the area, that I never get to tour any of these properties.
A little bit longer commute for you.
It'd be a little bit of a hassle to get down there just for a quick tour.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would imagine it is. I would have fun doing that as well. For me, though, working at home up in North Carolina, I probably accidentally end up being those guys you're talking about who are just like staring at someone coming through because
well, now
I got
you're
to get
on
out of
HOA
my
board,
house,
so
and I go
they
like,
give you your HOA binoculars too, don't they?
Yeah, it's not that bad, but I mean, it's like I go outside, take a walk around the neighborhood because I need to stretch my legs and get out of my house. And then, of course, I'm also just looking at things because, that's part of my function. There's probably people coming through like, what is that guy doing right now? Why has he stopped taking a picture of this tree root or whatever? Anyways, all right. As always, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And we've got exciting things going on. We're in an exciting place right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to be able to tell you any of that in specifics, but if you want those specifics, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn, on this Substack, on Spotify, through the website's chatbot, at Matthias at capitalvelocityinvestments.com, at Jordan at capitalvelocityinvestments.com. All the ways, please reach out if you got questions, comments, concerns, or you want to be a part of what we're doing here. We would love to hear from you. But for now, we're going to say see you later, and we hope you'll come back next time and join us for another edition of the Get Invested podcast.
Yep.